Do you have a minute or a time in your life that changed the entire trajectory of your life? Or you have a voice inside your soul that consistently speaks to you about something that needs to be listened to? Well, today I want to take you on a little journey. A journey all the way back to the day I was 32 years old, standing in a music store, staring at a guitar I wasn't sure I was allowed to want. I was married to a physically abusive husband, and we'll leave that there. I didn't know it then, but buying that guitar would be the moment that opened my life to possibilities. It would become the first note in a lifelong song of reinvention, courage, and choosing myself over fear. But at 32, I had no idea, not a clue. I was a young woman in a marriage where my voice was barely a whisper. In another video, I explained about finding my voice, if you'd like to listen to that. You don't realize how silent you've become until one day you reach for something, anything, and someone tells you you're not allowed to have it. But that day, something inside me woke up. It's the day I bought the guitar and trouble came home with me. It really was an ordinary, really, afternoon. I went to get some groceries, and in the mall, there was a music store. Well, I looked longingly at the guitars in the window, and part of me said, "Don't go, it'll cause trouble at home." But you know about that nasty little bird, the one that sits on the other half of your shoulder? Well, it egged me on. My goodness, you have time. Just go look. No harm in looking. I should have known better. There were so many guitars and instruments. Somehow, I don't know what happened. I think I was in a trance. Well, I did something that I felt was completely irresponsible. I came home with a guitar in my hand. I really don't know what possessed me. I had so long wanted a guitar, as I wanted to learn to play because, as I've previously shared, I wanted to sing. Well, since I was a wee girl. Maybe it was courage, maybe curiosity, maybe the faint memory that once upon a time, before adulthood, I actually had dreams. When I walked into the store, I said I was just looking. You know how we do that. The next thing I knew, the gentleman there had me sit down and put a guitar in my hand. I strummed it badly. The sound was terrible, but my heart it lit up like someone plugged me into electricity. And right there, in the middle of that little music shop, I heard a tiny voice inside say, "This is yours. Not you deserve this. I wasn't ready for that yet. Just, this is yours." So I bought it. I should share here, I knew nothing about a good guitar versus a bad one. I knew absolutely nothing about chords, frets, etc. But I chose that guitar mainly because it was a Fender. And at that time, I knew Fender was a trusted name. I still have that original guitar 50 years later, and she still plays and responds just like when she was young. Well, I walked into the door of my home and all hell, well, broke loose. My husband took one look. I couldn't hide that it was a guitar, that the huge case told the story. His words were, "What the hell have you done?" He was so angry. He didn't speak to me for a week. A week! Because I bought something, something that made me happy. Well, today at 82, I can say this with love and clarity. When something good for your soul makes someone else furious, that's a sign not of your wrongdoing, but of their fear of your awakening. But at 32, like I didn't know that. I just knew the air in the house felt so tight. And the guitar case in the corner felt like both a treasure and a crime. Teaching myself because lessons, were not permitted. I asked if I could take guitar lessons. The answer was no, a sharp, hard no. So I did what women have done for centuries. When told no, I found a quiet room. I was stubborn. I taught myself. I bought a cheap guitar book to teach me, and I began. My fingers were so tender they bled. If any of you have tried playing a guitar, it seems you need a bulldozer, to help your fingers hold the strings down, enough so you can get more than a horrid squeak out of them. So I just shifted to a different spot on my fingers. And that spot bled too. It wasn't pretty, but it was mine. I practiced in secret, soft strums, if that's what you called it in the beginning, more like a stick going, over a washboard. Muted chords, well, a little louder when no one else was home, but every note, it felt like a breath I'd been holding in for years. What I didn't know at 32, here's the part that still amazes me. I didn't know that this ordinary, rebellious little purchase, this $100 guitar with rock solid strings and a sound like a dying crow, at least when I began, would change the entire direction of my life. At 32, I thought I was just learning to play music. I didn't know that guitar would give me my courage. That courage would lead me onto a public stage. That finding my voice would help me leave a 21-year abusive marriage. That leaving would help me reclaim my worth. That reclaiming my worth would lead me to help others reclaim theirs. That decades later, that same courage would walk me onto Canada's Got Talent stage and eventually onto the YouTube one here at 82. All because a young woman me bought a guitar she wasn't supposed to want or have. I didn't know any of that. If you had told me then, I would have laughed, cried, or assumed you'd mixed me up, with someone far braver. But, life has a funny way of planting seeds long before we recognize what's growing. Did I think about giving up? Well, for sure. But I wanted it so badly. Actually, little known to me at the time, I needed it. The truth about turning points, well, here's what I know now. Wisdom earned the long way over 8 decades. The biggest turning points in your life, they rarely feel big at the time. They feel like, little tiny nudges, small curiosities, faint whispers. Something inside says, do this. Well, I call that a heart song. But you don't know why. Only later, looking back, do you see how monumental that moment really was. That guitar wasn't just an instrument. It was the key to my voice, the spark to my creativity, the door to my courage, the beginning of leaving silence, the first note in a lifelong symphony of becoming myself. What if I hadn't followed that voice inside and hadn't bought that guitar? I might never have sung in public. I might never have found the courage to leave that abusive marriage. I might never have discovered how freedom felt when I finally followed my heart. I might never have stepped on the stage at 80 either. I might never have started this channel to hopefully share my story and hopefully help you with yours. The entire arc of my life, from terrified young woman to mischievous 82-year-old storyteller, began on that single afternoon with that single yes. The lesson for you: if you're listening today and you're over 60, 70, 80, or whatever age, and you think your big turning points are behind you, not even close. They might be sitting quietly in the corner of your life right now, waiting for you to notice them. Maybe it's a class you want to take, a friend that you want to call, a trip you want to plan, a hobby tugging at your heart, a conversation you've avoided, a dream you tucked away decades ago, like me. And maybe, just maybe, that tiny nudge you feel is the beginning of the life you're meant to live next. If a frightened, abused young woman with bleeding fingers like me can start a new life, hey, you can start one too. Looking back now from my 82-year-old vantage point with my bifocals, my humor, and a heart full of perspective, I can say this with absolute certainty. I didn't know at 32 that buying that guitar would become the foundation of the woman I am today, but it did. And your next foundational moment might be waiting for you right now. So that is the story of the day I bought my guitar, the day my life quietly shifted, even though I didn't realize it until decades later. Next time, we'll talk about what happened when that guitar finally led me to the stage and to my own voice. But for now, I hope this leaves you with one thought. Don't ignore the small yeses. Perhaps you've had a heart song like me since you were a child and have never listened to that little voice. Why not venture out? Venture out with that. That might be the beginning of your greatest chapter. Do you have a heart song, that wee voice inside that whispers to you about your next adventure? Today is the day to get it out there. Ask yourself, what's the worst that can happen? But then don't forget to ask, what's the best that can happen? I bet that if you crush your fears and step out, your life will show you wonders you never believed possible. For now, I'll leave you to ponder on my story and think about your own. If you have any questions or something you'd love to share, I'd love to hear from you. Meanwhile, take care. Keep smiling. Love ya. Until the next time. Bye for now.